name's Frankie Ruffalo. I'm chair of the Devon branch with some help from Douglas here. He sorted us a venue here this morning, so thanks to Douglas, and big thank you to Kim for organising the food and everything. We've done the place up nicely. Part of a great team of people here in Newton Abbot. So we've been out leafleting in the town centre and the sort of marketplace, keeping the conversation about Brexit going. I believe there have been demos on the bridge recently, to leave, that sort of thing. And we're getting involved in sort of local campaigns on local issues. So Newton Says No. There's a great big, basically the council are, or at least they were, planning to build over a nature reserve. So we've been getting involved in the local campaign to protect Greenland, as is our policy. I'm mainly I live in Exeter, so I'm mainly active up there. They've joined me a few times for an anti-fox hunting protest where I spoke, and the lefties made one lefty group made a big fuss over me being there. It was like a Devon against hunting and the alt-right, which isn't true. And they did this. They thought it was an exposure article on me, and they called me out for things like being unsympathetic to Shamima Begum, and people will probably read that and think, yeah, he's right. But
It's a bad thing.
I know, literal
They are
terrorists.
clueless, aren't they?
I also spoke at an environmental protest recently. You know the ones, Extinction Rebellion, the school strikers and that. I might disapprove of their tactics, but to be fair, like we do have. I think we have some decent energy policies as a party. So I was in Torquay, I think last weekend or the weekend before, and I went through some of their policies there. And they basically want to reignite the coal mining industry. I think it's a bit too late to do that. And besides, though, we saw the Greens make huge gains in local elections and the EU elections. I think we should recognise the concerns of environmentalists without obviously being just the Green Party 2.0. And they came to join me up in leafleting around Exeter. Where I was the candidate in St Thomas Ward for Exeter City Council. It was disappointing to come last with 113 votes, but it was tough competition. So my Lib Dem opponent had been a council leader in the past. My Green Party opponent had been the parliamentary candidate in 2017. It was a Labour safe seat, so we were up against people who knew what they were doing. And actually, although it was a disappointment, it wasn't a complete humiliation. Other smaller parties have stood in Exeter time and time again. So there was one BNP guy who stood in different wards each time, and he never made it to triple figures. In fact, I got more than three times as many votes as he got last year. Likewise, Democrats and Veterans Party, they only got 10 votes when they stood in ward last year. Even the Women's Equality Party, so loony left, frumpy feminists, not sane, reasonable people like Anne-Marie. But they stood twice, and their vote share managed to go down. They only got 66 votes. So I think we're doing better than for a relatively young party. We got off to, I think, a decent start in Exeter, and I was getting support from people from all ages, even with the I don't know if anyone saw on Devon Live the Quran incident.
I was very proud.
I mean, it got we were probably some of the most talked about people in that election, other than some of an independent candidate who got in. But I had people, young and old, black and white, coming up to me saying, "Yeah, I respect you for that." And it says in the article, I openly admit it. There's no point in denying it. And I think some people might actually see that and think, well, if he's that open and honest about that, then what else is he? What else is he going to be talking about quite honestly and openly? Likewise, some of our other policies, talking about public sector accountability, some of my ideas on how to deal with things on a local level. So, talking about where the money for the council was spending money stupidly. So, for instance, spending over £33,000 a year on ceremonies. If you got rid of some of those ceremonies, you could have at least an extra £10,000 a year for the homeless services, and an extra £10,000 a year for Devon rape crisis centres, which were losing their funding from the council. So and we had people come up to me say, I voted Conservative all my life, but I vote for you. And likewise, I was talking to younger people, students at the university. There's a lot of lefties there, obviously. But even they thought some of my policies, such as raising the council tax on businesses which install spikes outside shops and so on, things to discriminate against homeless people, they thought were really good. So I think we can attract quite a wide range of people. I'm not going to make this all about me, but some people might be interested to see why somebody my age or from Exeter would be in for Britain. And I'm from a Labour voting family, and sort of growing up when I was really young, when I had some idea of what politics was, it just seemed like the place for me to go. So we were taught in school, rightly I'd say, that how Churchill, arguably the greatest Conservative Prime Minister of all time, won us World War II, but then it was the Labour Party after that who sort of rebuilt this country, and they did at the time arguably rebuild it for people like my father, who came from a very poor immigrant background. Both my grandparents on my father's side were Italian immigrants, and they were very little up in the Midlands. But things, sort of as the years went on, things sort of came into conflict with that. Like, Labour felt like the natural place for me to go, but then when Margaret Thatcher passed away, whatever you think about Margaret Thatcher, I think the way the left was celebrating and glorifying this, I think it did show a bit of an ugly side to them. People not only making The Wicked Witch is Dead #1 in the charts, but picketing funerals. I mean, this is Westboro Baptist Church stuff. I mean, they are actually, there's literally no difference between them now. Did anyone see, back in March, there was a great big anti-Brexit protest? Did anyone see the picture of the little girl holding up a sign with the picture on it of a great big hairy part of male anatomy to say bollocks to Brexit? I know. I mean, is it that different from Westboro Baptist Church getting children to hold up signs saying God hates fags and things like that? And we saw in Sevenoaks when Generation Identity were having a meeting there a couple of years ago. They Antifa, Hope Not Hate, leaked the location. And then Antifa turned up, and they brought children with them. So you get punched, and then you turn around and see it's someone it's a kid who's like 12, and obviously you can't hit a child. And so Hope Not Hate, in doing what they're doing, because there wouldn't be why would you leak the address unless you wanted people to turn up and cause trouble? Are putting children in danger here. And also, we were the only but then sort of after that happened, I discovered the Green Party, and they put a friendly face to the left. I think they tend to be as one-to-one. They tend to be quite nice, friendly people, and they do. Some of them do a lot of good. Try to do a lot of good in their communities on a local level. But then later on, I realised some of the stuff they were promoting was pretty nonsensical. So that was when I was 15. I supported the Green Party. We had a good candidate in Exeter in the general election. They came to our school and they talked. And I met Diana Moore. She's the Green councillor now, and she is a nice lady. But around 2016 was when we started to see the tables really started to turn. So a friend of mine put on his Facebook page a YouTube video about safe spaces at universities. And I watched it. It was from Roaming Merniel. Does anyone know of her? Lauren Chen? Oh, yeah. She's quite good. And I realised this. I was only just finding out about this. And then I started seeing this in the real world as well. So there was a camping trip I went on with a bunch of people around my age. And they were actually, people were actually saying things like, there are more than two genders, and things like that. And it was realised that this sort of lunacy is a thing. It does exist. It's not in the just an American nonsense or some fad over there. It's actually happening here, and people are actually believing this. So yeah, from Roaming Millennial, I started discovering the other sort of what Paul Joseph Watson calls the countercultural sort of side of YouTube, the people challenging the mainstream narratives which are being pushed in schools, etc. And through a lot of the media a lot of the time, and through celebrities and so on. Of course, we saw vote to leave the EU, fantastic. My friend and I in school, we had to do this thing where we presented the news, or told the news every time we had we took the registering class and tutor session, And we had to sort of present both sides of the argument. I just found that the Remain side was quite weak. Not that the Brexit side was particularly good, but it does actually bring out that emotion. Somebody on Question Time in Scotland put it quite well, that to want decision-making power closer to where you are, in systems and institutions that you understand, being held by people who you know or know about, you know of, most of the people wouldn't have no idea. Even EU lovers have no idea who's in charge of the EU. But it's something, as I put out quite simply, it's a normal thing to want independence. I don't think it's hateful. I don't think it's fascist. If anything, it's about love. It's not about hate at all. Working in, hopefully we should wait much longer. But working, one of my first proper jobs was in a homeless shelter, and this was when I left school, started college. And that sort of made me want to get seriously political, seeing the way those people were suffering was quite unpleasant. I had to help a girl who'd had either an infection from injecting or a drug overdose one time, and it was it was quite it was a bit of an unpleasant experience at times. But I felt proud working there just as a cleaner. It felt like I was doing some good. And I was rather disappointed when the council closed that shelter down, and hence why homelessness was a big thing in the local election. But then, of course, later on we saw in 2017, that was a pretty bad year in terms of Islamic terrorism, not just for Britain, but worldwide. We had was it Paris, Berlin was around Christmas time. There was Paris, Westminster, Manchester, Barcelona, New York. And that sort of made me realise, seeing I was up ridiculously late revising for an exam, and seeing the Manchester attack, watching it unfold, was quite scary in a way. It's terrifying, and we're talking about actual terrorists here. And the next day, when it went. You saw it visibly shook the nation. Walking around college and that, almost no one was smiling. At one point, I went into the cafeteria, and on one of the sort of plasma screens, the news was on, and the Queen had put out a statement about the attack. And one of my classmates was in there reading it aloud from the screen, and everyone else was silent, just listening. And I thought, this is how people would have felt back in World War II when Neville Chamberlain announced that we were at war with Germany back in 1939. I mean, this is how it felt watching 9/11. I'm not old enough to remember 9/11, but I'm sure everyone else in here. But I'm sure everyone else in here remembers seeing it as it happened. And some of the people in Exeter who want to delegitimise me in what I'm saying will say, oh, it's only what you've seen in the media, it's only what you've seen from Tommy Robinson say, or what Anne-Marie say, or whatever. And it's like, no, I have seen for myself the problems. So I went to London to protest the Al-Quds March, and seeing hundreds of people with Hezbollah flags is quite a sight. And I spoke to a few Muslim men who were going to this protest, who were actually defending how Iran treats gay people, saying, well, society's got to have morals. And I was pretty shocked and angry. And you can't help but think that when they go home, they're not just suddenly de-radicalised. They don't stop holding those extreme views. These problems are here, and they are here to stay. This is going to be, I think, one of the biggest fights of my generation. I think, but having said that, it's not just the Islamic problem, it's everywhere. So rural crime is a big thing down here. I spoke in the election about how a friend of mine, my friend's brother, was stabbed in a park just minutes up the road from where I went to school, at least a couple of years ago now. And I had this girl, she was like 11, 12, tell me, completely unfazed, just almost with a smile on her face, that her brother had been stabbed. I'd seen the police helicopter over the park that day, and when I was leafleting in Exeter with Anne-Marie, we had a police helicopter. It was really loud then. You were like, what the hell? But it's semi-regular now. It went past yesterday. A couple of weeks back, we had a sort of community get-together in my neighbourhood, fundraising for Macmillan Cancer. It was a really nice day, but then I see the police helicopter in the near distance, and I'm thinking, you know, what's happened now? Is it going to be somebody else that I might know? But But I think we are a party of law and order, and I think we can help bring about change on a local level to make things better. And we saw in the local elections, Labour and Tories were in big trouble, lost a lot of seats. And even in Somerset, even in this part of the country, in Jacob Rees-Mogg's constituency, the Tories lost control of the council. They're losing control in East Devon, all over the place down here. I think we're capable of taking on Labour in Exeter as well. If we can beat them in Hartlepool, we can beat them anywhere. So I think we can keep going. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.